Welcome Red Hunt listeners, where we dive into the captivating real-life relationship stories shared on Reddit. This is your host, Red, ready to uncover the tales that leave us breathless. Am I the antagonist for refusing to drive around friends and thus ruining a long-awaited day out? I belong to a group of friends where out of the 8 of us, 6 of us have our driving licenses. Whenever we plan a day or night out, only one other girl and I are willing to drive. So we split the group between us and pick everyone up individually from their own houses. This works out well because everyone lives fairly close to one another. To put it in perspective, after I finish picking everyone up, I have to loop around because my house is in the direction of the entrance of the main highway. Overall, driving both ways adds an hour of driving, not including the time it takes to drop everyone off at the end. We have been doing this since we graduated high school, and now we are around 22, 23 years old, working jobs that require us to drive to and from home. We see each other on a weekly basis for early morning gym sessions or errand running, and I am always the one picking them up. I have no issue with my friends without their licenses. They have their own reasons for the delay but are actively trying to get their licenses. They always pay me petrol money or cover my meal to make up for the inconvenience. What pushed me over the edge was last month when we planned a rock climbing session. It's a 10-minute drive from my place, and even the friend who lives the furthest away would only have to drive 25 minutes at most. However, half of the group refused to drive and instead suggested taking a 50-minute train ride if I refused to pick them up. I don't have a lot of free time, and I don't like waiting for people to arrive late for group activities. It's not uncommon for the same friends to be half an hour to an hour late, so I considered just giving in and picking everyone up myself as usual. However, another friend who was driving down insisted that I shouldn't do so. One person in the group who I refused to pick up ended up driving themselves and the rest to the destination. We have been trying to plan a proper day out for the past month, and everyone finally had a free day. The plan involved a 2-hour drive down the coast. Considering the time it would take me to pick everyone up, I would be driving a total of 6 hours that day. I have refused to do it and stated that unless they are one of the 2 without a license, they need to drive themselves if they want to go. The plan fell through because no one else wanted to drive, and my friend group is blaming me for it. They believe that since I am one of the people who really wanted to go out, I should be happy to pick people up. They also argue that since 2 people are paying for petrol money, I shouldn't be too concerned about it. Am I the asshole here? It's not fair for you to always be the one responsible for driving everyone around, especially when you have your own responsibilities and limited free time. It's reasonable for you to ask others to step up and take turns driving, especially if they have their licenses. My relationship with my mother is horrible. What do? I am a 20-year-old female who has had a complicated relationship with my mother since my father passed away when I was a teenager. It's difficult to explain and I rarely discuss it, so please bear with me. When I was younger, I admired and followed my mom everywhere. She took incredible care of my sick father, but when he died, she lost a part of herself. I understand her grief and don't hold it against her. For reference, my sister Annie was 14 and I was 12 when he passed away. Before his death, we all had a good relationship and a happy childhood. However, everything fell apart afterwards. My mom became colder and less empathetic towards my sister and me. She couldn't see past her own grief and only considered her own needs. Although she put Annie and me in therapy, she refused to seek therapy for herself. Our house became inherently depressing. Too quiet, too big, and filled with tension. Anything could trigger my mom's anger. If I left my backpack on the counter, she would scream at me until I cried. If Annie forgot to clean the counters after dinner, our mom would scream at her, calling her worthless. I spent a lot of time hiding in my basement room, listening to my mom's footsteps above to gauge her mood. Initially, we would fight at least once a week, but eventually, it became unusual to go a day without screaming at each other. Annie developed a drug and alcohol problem, and my mom made me discipline her. If necessary, I can explain this further. My mom also leaned on me for comfort. She would express suicidal thoughts and seek advice regarding Annie's substance abuse. Other issues that arose include my mom occasionally hitting us. Although the frequency wasn't consistent enough to be considered abuse, she has probably hit me about a dozen times over the years. Annie endured more because she redirected attention away from me to protect me. On one occasion, my mom left a large bruise on my upper arm during summer, and I had to face inquiries about its origin every day, which was humiliating. My mom also used to pit Annie and me against each other at times, severely affecting our relationship. Nevertheless, I genuinely loved my mom. She was mostly nice to me, and we had good days where we would go for coffee, listen to music, and visit bookstores. It's just challenging to reconcile both sides of her personality. In summary, my teenage years were spent in an extremely toxic environment, which I only realized after speaking openly to one of my therapists. Things have improved now that Annie and I no longer live with our mom, although it's still not great. During visits, the experiences vary. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. When my mom, Annie, and I are together, chaos ensues. It's terrible and draining. Today we had a really bad fight that I won't delve into, but it was disturbing. Hurtful things were said by both parties. I'm at a loss for what to do. I'm exhausted, but I still love my mom. Every time I think things are improving, they worsen. I feel like I make an effort, but nothing changes. My mom continually tears me down and criticizes me, labeling me a terrible daughter. Due to our shared experiences, my relationship with Annie is practically non-existent, pulling us further apart. I want to acknowledge that I'm not blameless in this situation. I've said and done mean things to my mom and sister. I've been a terrible daughter and I recognize my faults, discussing them with my therapist. So, my main question is, what else can I do? I've repeatedly asked my mom to seek therapy, but she ignores my pleas. I genuinely love her, but I'm mentally drained. She never takes responsibility for her actions, leaving me unsure of where to go from here. I would greatly appreciate any advice, even if it may be difficult to hear. I'm really sorry you're going through this. It sounds like a really tough situation, and it's totally understandable that you're feeling exhausted and lost. Have you considered seeking support from a different family member or a close friend who might be able to help you navigate this situation? My wife still hung up on ex from 20 years ago. I need some perspective and advice regarding my situation. Here's a little background. My wife Angela, 47F, and I, Graham, 47M, have been together for 19 years and married for 14. We have 2 children. Before me, Angela had one serious boyfriend named Barry, 47M, who she dated for 10 years and was engaged to at one point. Initially, Angela misled me about the details of their breakup, making it seem like she ended it long before we met. However, I later discovered that Barry ended the relationship, and Angela had been trying to get back with him until just 1 month before meeting me. Over time, I pieced together the truth from various sources. Despite this, I believed it didn't matter anymore as we've been happily married without any issues. Now, fast forward to today, Feb 10, 2024. As far as I know, Angela has had minimal direct contact with Barry over the years. However, she messaged him a couple of years ago to express condolences when his father passed away and also messaged him on his 40th birthday. Through his sister, who Angela has been in contact with, she would receive updates on Barry's life, particularly his troubled marriage. Angela would occasionally mention this to me, always making it seem like she was glad to have moved on from him. However, today my son used my MacBook to make a video and asked to use clips from Angela's phone. When I took her phone to airdrop the clips, I noticed a message in her Facebook Messenger from Barry. Apparently, starting in late November, Angela had initiated a conversation with him to reminisce about a roller skating rink they used to visit. They briefly talked about the renovations to the rink. Barry then mentioned his new motorcycles with neon lights and sent Angela pictures. They continued discussing the bikes and other related topics. Angela mentioned her concern for his safety while riding and asked him to send pictures of him and his son. After almost 2 weeks, Angela messaged him again on December 22nd, wishing him Merry Christmas and reminding him about the pictures. They exchanged pleasantries and pictures on New Year's Day. There hasn't been any communication since then, which was about 3 weeks ago. I can't help but feel confused and concerned about Angela's intentions. It seems like she's pushing to meet up with Barry, expressing her love for him and wanting his happiness after all these years. This is causing me to question the state of our marriage. Should I confront her about the messages? How do I let her know that I found them? Am I overthinking this, or is there a significant issue in our relationship? Additionally, Angela used to share gossip about Barry's marital troubles before, but now that he's actually divorced, she hasn't said a word about it. This change in behavior also worries me. Any advice on how to handle this situation would be greatly appreciated. It's understandable that you're feeling confused and concerned about your wife's ongoing communication with her ex. Before jumping to any conclusions, it might be best to have an open and honest conversation with her about your feelings and insecurities regarding the situation. Communicating your concerns calmly and respectfully is key in resolving any potential issues and strengthening your relationship. Husband neglects me and our kids for his video games. So, some background information. We've been together for 11 years, married for 5 years. He is 35 years old and I am 34 years old. We have an 11-year-old child and an 8-month-old child together. He has a gaming addiction, which I already knew about when we were dating. However, he promised me that he would stop but has failed to do so. There have been 2 incidents in the past that really hurt me. The first one was when we were dating. I stayed over at his place and he spent the whole day on his computer. I ended up leaving without him even noticing or bothering to call me. The second incident was when I was pregnant with our first child. I had a difficult pregnancy with gallbladder attacks, and I had a sonogram scheduled in the morning. Despite knowing about the appointment, he ignored my calls and texts. I had to call his mother, who informed me that he had been up all night playing video games. He prioritized gaming over his responsibilities and our child's well-being. He promised to change that day, but nothing has changed since then. Every day he comes home from work and barely acknowledges me or the kids. He goes straight to the computer until the early hours of the morning. Today, for example, he was gaming from 11 a.m. until 3 a.m. I have lost count of how many times I've expressed my dissatisfaction with this situation. It hurts me to see how our 11-year-old tries to get his father's attention and the baby, who is only 8 months old, visibly upset when he is being ignored. Even on vacations and weekend getaways, he can't go more than 72 hours without gaming. It's as if he's addicted to it. If this were a drug addiction or an alcohol problem, I would have left him years ago without hesitating. There are moments when I confront him about this, and he goes from being calm to explosive in seconds. He doesn't physically harm me, but his yelling is extremely hurtful. He never apologizes, and I end up crying alone in a room. It frustrates me that he asks me why I'm depressed or what he can do to make me happy, as if he is not aware of how he is contributing to my unhappiness. I am essentially managing a household for a family of 4 without any help from him. Our 11-year-old helps me with the chores, but my husband does nothing. The only reason I haven't left is that I would have to move back in with my parents. I wouldn't have anything of my own, and I would feel like a failure in my marriage and as a parent. I can't talk to him while he's gaming because he accuses me of nagging him. Asking him for any kind of assistance, even just 10 minutes to myself, is out of the question. I don't know what to do anymore. He refuses to talk to a counselor or seek help, claiming that it won't be effective. It has gotten to the point where I believe he would choose his video games over his own family. I am writing this in tears because I feel completely lost. What makes it even more painful is that growing up, my own father prioritized his football games over my activities. Despite being involved in soccer and horseback riding, my dad would drop me off and leave to watch football games on TV. It was always football season that mattered, and I felt neglected. Now, having a husband who does the same thing is incredibly painful. I despise video games, and for anyone to say that it's not a big deal, they have no idea how it feels to be made to feel like the least important person due to a game and feel invisible. I'm really sorry you're going through this. It sounds like his gaming addiction has taken a toll on you and your family. Have you tried sitting down with him during a calm moment and having a heart-to-heart conversation about how his actions make you feel? You put my child in danger. Somehow I'm the issue? There is a lot of missing context to understand this story fully, but I'll provide what I can to help. My mother has been an alcoholic for most of my teenage and adult life. She has periods of sobriety but also relapses, which is common for those who don't seek help. When she's drinking, she becomes extremely self-centered and entitled. A little background. In March-April, my mother was hospitalized for a liver artery rupture, which she denies is related to her drinking. In the summer, she seemed to be back on track with sobriety and was supportive during my fiancé's pregnancy. I even let her be present for the birth of our baby. Everything seemed fine, so we cautiously allowed her to watch the baby after my fiancé's maternity leave ended, hoping it would help her maintain sobriety. However, my sister called me to inform me that our mother had been drinking again, although not around the baby. I couldn't reach home quickly enough to ensure the safety of my baby, so I asked my father-in-law to pick her up without letting my mom know. She sensed something was up and understood the situation. We found a new sitter and limited contact with my mother. A few months later, my sister shared a story about our mom begging to watch her kids but choosing to drink instead, even though she was supposed to babysit. This incident from years ago got mixed up in my mind, and I wrongly associated it with our mom drinking and driving with her kids. I was emotional at the time and confused the details. On the positive side, during another phone call, my sister informed me that our mom was doing better again. This made me consider allowing her to watch the baby one day a week, thinking it might give her something to look forward to. However, when I approached my mom with this offer, she responded negatively, demanding that I ask her directly and wanting to have complete control over the situation. It escalated into an argument where she tried to justify her drinking and accused me of using the baby as leverage. She was also upset that I called my fiancé's father to pick up the baby, even though she wasn't drinking that day, which was true, or after they left, which was a lie. Because of the mix-up with the stories from my sister, I confronted my mom with the wrong information, which led to her denying it and further argument. I had to end the argument by telling her that we could talk when she was ready to address the problem maturely. The next day we had a call, but I'll share the details in my next post. To conclude, I love my mother. She is amazing when she's sober. However, alcohol transforms her into a narcissistic and entitled person. If the community is interested, I can continue sharing the story from the next day's phone call and the ongoing developments. It's strange and frustrating, but telling this story has been oddly cathartic. Wow, that sounds like such a tough situation. It's heartbreaking when someone you love struggles with addiction and it affects their behavior. I can understand why you wouldn't feel comfortable leaving your baby with her anymore. Am I the antagonist, or is my friend entitled? My husband has been going on a vacation in the fall for years to unwind and relax. He pays for everyone's accommodations and almost everything while on the trip. 2 years ago, my husband and I decided to invite our best friends. We also invited his parents and aunt and uncle. We ended up going on a tiki boat, and my 21-year-old son at the time was overserved and was vomiting in the trash can and could barely stand. I was furious. We took him back home, made him hydrate and shower. While he's in the shower, my friend, who is also drunk, is trying to get into the bathroom where he is to help. I was already tending to my son, but now she keeps trying to get inside the bathroom. I made my son leave it unlocked, just in case I needed to go in there. He was extremely intoxicated. I ended up having to raise my voice and tell her to just go back outside with the guys. Suddenly, my husband was upset at me for being rude to her. She didn't explain to him what had happened correctly. Whatever, the next morning everyone is fine, cool. So, my husband and I decided to just invite our best friends 2 years ago for a burrito. That way our attention can be with them more and not split with his family and them. It seemed like a lot before. We rent another home on the water and they are both invited, along with my oldest son, now 23, and his girlfriend. Last year I decided not to invite her and invited my sister instead. It seemed like a lot of drama and I didn't enjoy myself like I wished I had. She is the party friend, so she'd rather hang out with everyone else drinking. And cool, that's who she is, I know this. This year I'm inviting my sister again. She ended up not being able to come last year. My friend brings up what she calls friend's vacation almost every single time we speak. She tells me she told her flavor of the month he's gonna have to step up his game and jet ski, boat, etc. So she is constantly trying to be invited again, and sounds like she thinks we will allow her booty calls too. 2 days ago, she FaceTimes me and flat out asks me if we are having another friend's trip this year. I say, number one, it's not a friend's trip, this is my husband's annual trip. Secondly, if we don't go overseas, then I'm inviting my sister again since she was unable to go last year. Well, she puts her middle finger up while I'm talking. Not quickly, but like left it up. She then says if it is not a friend's trip, then why did my husband invite his friend again last year? So I said my husband pays for this trip so he's allowed to invite whom he wants. This really makes me feel some sort of way. My husband kind of thinks it makes me a jerk because she doesn't have the means to do nice things and I could just invite her. Yeah, I could, but my sister also doesn't have the means, so it is nice to have her there also. There is less drama too. Just curious about your thoughts. I'd like to go off on my friend because I just feel like it's now expected. It sounds like your friend is being pushy and not respecting your boundaries when it comes to your husband's annual trip. It's completely up to you who you choose to invite, and if having your sister there creates a better dynamic for you, then that's your decision. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.